Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Hey everybody, my name's Dan. I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober since January 9th of 2006, and that's God's grace in my life and everybody in this room. Is that better? I've been sober every day since January 9th of 2006 because of God's grace and Alcoholics Anonymous and the people in these rooms. I'm grateful today that I'm up here being able to speak for CFC, Correctional Facilities Committee. It's been near and dear to my heart since I've been freed. I got a little funny story, at least I think it's a funny story. Mike Divins has been a part of my life since I came to the Brazos Valley and was part of New Hope Group. And Mike always taught me to dress up when I represent Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is how this went, is they asked me to speak at the Correctional Facilities Southeast Texas Area Assembly one time. They asked me and Tina, who's going to speak tomorrow, to come speak. And I thought, man, I'm going to come represent myself. And I showed up in my biker stuff with my sleeveless shirt, my tattoos hanging out, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to bring the message, right? Who is the first person I ran into when I walked in that door? I had to run up to Ross and get new clothes. So I got a lot of compliments this morning on this, but you can actually thank Mike for that. I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I've been doing this workshop for 3 or 4 years, and usually what I do is I have people come up who have brought the message into the prisons, and people who come up who have been in prison who have heard the message. Donnie came to the Unity Conference this year, and Paul brought him, and I got to hear his message, and I really want to leave a lot of room for his story. My job up here today is to try to make it to where you want to maybe carry a message in a county jail or into a prison. You don't ever have to spend a day in jail to do that. And that's what it was like for me. I spent 17 years in penitentiary on the installment plan, in and out, in and out. And the 4th time that I was in prison, I don't know why I heard that message that day, but the message was simple. And I had heard you people talk to me thousands of times in meetings, and the light never clicked on. And Paul was carrying a message down to Huntsville to the Estelle unit, and I believe he was doing it once a month. And Paul's message was simple, and his message is, if I can do this, you can do this. And for the first time in my life, he gave me some hope. And for the first time in my life, I was scared to death to get out. Before, I always thought I knew something. And what I realized this time is that the only thing I really knew how to do was do the same thing. And this is where you all come into play. When I got out, I got hooked up with a great home group. Mike always tells me that I can't say it's the best group on earth, but for me it is. Those people reached out their hand and taught me a new way to live. I always thought if I could just leave the drinking problem alone, that my life would get better, and that was not the case. I needed people to show me, because I was hard-headed, to show me how to live, how to be respectable. Here's a good concept, how to be good to other people. My whole life I've been a taker. I took and I took and I took. And you know, I had a great sponsor when I came into this program. And I'd like to tell you that he always told me, you got to do this and you got to do that. And looking back at it now, Tim never told me to do anything. What he did is he drugged me around and he made stuff look attractive. Service work, sponsoring people. Anytime, anywhere, somebody, that somebody needs help, I want the hand of AA to be there. And he taught me that. And people like Beth and T.O., who were heavy into service commitments at the time, showed me how I could have fun. But the greatest thing that I learned is I think deep down inside, I always wanted to be a good person. And I always thought that, man, how could I be of service to the next person? I didn't know how that was going to work. And always in the back of my head, I thought, how could God use somebody like me to help somebody else? Robert came into my life early on in sobriety. He was carrying the message into the prison systems. And he said, hey, man, I can get you in on a sponsorship program. Why don't you come carry the message into the inmates? That was a life-changing event for me to be able to do that. To actually go into a prison and carry a message of hope like Paul brought it into me. I don't know, we don't get to pick and choose who makes it in this program, right? And we see miracles every day in AA out here, right? But I assure you, there's miracles every day in prison going on. But there's not a lot of people carrying the message into the units. And that's my job, is to try to get you, to try to get outside yourself and do something different. Pretty sure Paul never really spent any time in jail. But when he spoke the message of the heart, the language that he brought, I heard it. I want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you need to do to maybe do your application. Applications is real easy. The first thing you do is you don't lie on it, right? Well, because, I mean, I'm real good at lying on those things. And here's the deal, is if they'll let somebody like me go back in and carry the message into prisons, they'll let anybody. If they'll let Donnie do it, I mean, you can do it. You just got to be honest. And then you have to go to an orientation. And the orientation is real simple. It's about a 3-hour deal. And they just try to teach you things like don't marry the prisoners, you know, right? Don't bring cell phones into them, you know. Don't bring guns in. You know, don't give them your address or your bank account number. Just simple stuff that you probably already know. I don't know, you know. But they spend a lot of time going over that. It's been a life-changing experience for me to be able to do that. I've watched people grow in the program that do it. The field is real small. And I don't know how many prisoners there are in the state of Texas right now, but I imagine it's around 250,000. And that's a lot of people that need to hear a message. I guarantee you, from being on the other side, and I'm going to be nice, 75% of them are in there for drug and alcohol-related offenses, just like I was. I mean, I did some really horrible stuff out here, but it was all with the mindset that I'm going to get that next drink or I'm going to get that next whatever it was. And those people need to hear the message. You only have to have 18 months of sobriety to go in. If you have been in prison, you only need to be out, I believe it's a year, and you can start carrying the message back in. If you're on probation or parole, it doesn't matter. I'm on that. I'm pretty sure Donnie's still on it. You know, RPOs encourage that. You know, by doing that, I get to stay sober. I get the amazing life, you know. And with that being said, I'm going to have Donnie come up because I want him to share his story. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donnie. I'm a real alcoholic. That's what they called me in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've been calling myself that ever since. Now, I thought I'd be able to come in and, you know, maybe put a little BS by you, but darn, I know half of you. So, even worse, half of you know me. So I can't do that. Instead, I'm going to say, I think they asked me to come speak because I am the reason we go into prisons. I started very young, very young. At the age of 8, my mother left my alcoholic father. My alcoholic father was already pretty much absent in my life. And my mother was working full-time to support 3 kids. she was not always there. I didn't have a whole lot of guidance. And I was lonely. I was frightened. I didn't know how to do this thing called life. I was doing the best I could, a little boy. And so at the age of 13, one day I stayed the night over at a friend's house, and he had this little pint of, I believe it was black velvet, but I don't know. It was whiskey. That much I do know. And we went out to the backyard, and his father's abandoned car back there, and we just drank, and I got so dizzy. I was feeling so good. I was feeling not so afraid anymore. I was feeling 10 foot tall, bulletproof, and like it didn't matter. All that fear and loneliness and all that stuff just didn't seem to matter. And suddenly a little child learns, this is how you live. This is how you feel good. This is my solution. It wasn't my problem from the very beginning. It wasn't my problem. It was my solution. To drink, to feel good about me, about life, to live. When I made that decision, it's like one particular person used to tell me, a chemical reaction happened in me because my alcoholic father gave me his genes, and I am an alcoholic. What that means is I have a physical allergy to this alcohol. It creates an urge for more. It alters the way I think, the way I reason. It becomes the all-important thing in my life. And so I took a drink, the drink took a drink, as someone so many times told me. And then the drink took me. And I was living my life to get high at a very young age, in my early teens. And so one of the career decisions I made at the ripe old age of 16, since I couldn't support myself, I didn't want to go to school, it seemed to get in the way of my fun. I decided I was going to go in and burglarize places and go in and rob places and get money that way, and it's a career decision at the ripe old age of 16. All throughout 16 through 19, I was more in than out of county jails. But every time, I still had no guidance. I was still that 13-year-old frightened boy because I had stopped maturing the moment I started drinking. And I was still dependent on Mommy to get me out of jail, to support me, to do everything. I didn't know how to do all this stuff. And I was just constantly depending on others to do for me. Well, that went on until I was 19. At the age of 19, in a drunken brawl that went on involving myself, my brother, and another guy, a guy pulled a gun, and I felt it necessary to pull my gun and shoot that man, and I killed him. And they sent me to prison for the first time. I went to prison, and make a long story short, I didn't do anything. I got jailhouse religion. Got jailhouse religion, and praise God, I was gung-ho for my jailhouse religion, but funny thing is, even the priests drink wine. So it was perfectly okay. You see, I did nothing to build character. I was just learning how to play the role of religion. And so when I got out in 1980, I got out of prison. The first thing I did was celebrate with a quart of Budweiser. Well, that Budweiser took another Budweiser. More Budweiser took more Budweisers, and before I knew it, I was back in that same old comfortable yet self-destructive pattern of robbing people, committing crimes, that career decision I'd made when I was just a little child. Because it's all I knew. I'd done nothing to change, nothing. In 8 months' time, I was back into the jailhouses, headed back towards the penitentiary, and this time the state of Texas said, we'd had enough of you. That's it. They sent me there with an aggravated life sentence. Said, you're not going to rob us anymore. I got the message. I went to prison, but I didn't stop drinking. I became a very good hooch maker. For the first 4 years of my confinement, that's what I was doing. I was making hooch virtually every weekend, and I was getting drunk, and I was doing other things, and I was getting into trouble, acting out. So in 1984, they decided, okay, we had enough of you again. And they threw me under the prison in little one-man cell lockups that they had. They call it administrative segregation, but it's just isolation cells is all it is. One-man cells. I couldn't even see daylight most of the time. For 6 years, they kept me in these one-man cells, never being able to get out except if I'm shackled hand and foot and stripped butt naked and walking around in filthy, dilapidated prisons with roaches and rats and all sorts of other things walking around that could bite me and want to eat me. That was as good as it had gotten in my life on my living skills. That's all I knew. That's the best I knew. Those were the results. So there came a day on September 16th, 1985. I said, you know what? I've had enough. I have a problem, and that problem is me. I don't know how to live. This is all I know how to do. I need someone to show me how to live. The day I said that is the day I became teachable. That's the day I became teachable. And so God has a way of putting people, places, and things in my life at the time that I need them most. And they let me out of lockup because I stopped giving them trouble. And they put me on the Wallace Pack unit down here in Navasota. I met a guy there by the name of Al M. Of course, I can say his last name. He's no longer with us. He died of cancer some time back. Al Mills. He was the head counselor on that unit for the substance abuse treatment program. And be honest with you, I didn't really come to AA wanting to find solutions in my life not right off. I was coming to AA because I wanted to be in the AA band that he had going on at the time. I play the guitar. I produce music now, but at the time I was playing the guitar and having a good time doing it. And I wanted to be in that prison band as well as all the other ones. I was already in all the other ones. And oh wow, he was a sly character. He says, okay, you can be in the AA band, but first you have to go in these classes. Everybody in my AA band has to go to these classes, the SATP education classes. I said, okay, no problem. So I started going to these SATP education classes, and what I saw were people like y'all, people like me, and y'all were talking about stuff. I thought I was so unique with all these feelings I had, with all this stuff that was going on in my life. I thought I was so unique. Nobody had ever understand me, but here y'all were talking my story again and again and again. I said, hey, wait a minute. I'm going to listen to more of this. I'm in the right place. And these little light bulbs started coming on, you know. And Al, he was a sly character. He kept throwing books at me. He says, read this, read that. And before I even knew that he was my sponsor, Al was sponsoring me from the very beginning. And he was nudging me, and he was edging me, and he was nurturing me. Before too awfully long, he had me read all these books, take these courses, these intensive courses on recovery, and he had me and some other guys on the unit as peer facilitators for teaching his SATP classes. And he had us getting up there and doing steering committee, volunteer, service work in the meetings. And he had us getting out on the yard and sponsoring each other and generally pulling each other up and just trying to learn this thing, the best we could through the literature and through his guidance. He was teaching me how to take responsibility for my own recovery, for my own life. And he was bringing in all of these volunteers. One particular volunteer came in, and she really impressed me at the time. She had colon cancer, and she said that it was because all those years that men were always blowing smoke up her ass, It's
Yeah.
But the fact is, she was going through this chemo, and chemo does a lot of bad things to you. They take it out of you and have bad effects on your body. But I saw her going through all this, sometimes just hardly able to walk. And it really impressed me the extent she was coming in there for me, to bring a message to me, for us. Even though she was going through all of this stuff, I saw other people coming in, giving messages all the time, teaching us by example as well as by word how to grow up and take responsibility for your own life. That this is a very attractive program, that it is a good way of life. They were happy. They were happy, and that's what I always wanted in my life. So I kept coming, and I kept getting more and more active. And they kept insisting that I do it for myself, that I take responsibility for my own recovery. So I did it, and I did it because it kept having good results in my life. Not only was I no longer in lockup, I was in all sorts of bands, including the AA band. I was learning the thing that I've loved ever since I was a child, and that's music. My mind was not trying to play God anymore. It wasn't taken up with all this, trying to keep up with my manipulations and lies and all of this crap, all this resentment and anger and hatred. Instead, it was free to do the things that I love to do, and that's music. And so I went after that. I saw this good stuff then. More and more, the prison administrators were taken by me. I thought it was so unique because in prison, when you're an offender, they call them now. They used to call them inmates. Now they call them offenders. When you're an offender, it is automatic standard operating procedure that you are never to be believed over an officer. 30 inmates are not to be believed over one officer. That's just standard operating procedure. But when I would go to them for years and shoot straight with them, there came a point when those administrators, when I said something, they believed me. And I thought, God, that blew me away. People were starting to trust me again. I wasn't doing anything for them to not trust me. So these good things were going on in my life then. I was learning how to stand on my own 2 feet. Y'all were coming in there and showing me that. Y'all took the time to do that. So I had to, they did away with the counselors, and they started the volunteer program. And many of you came in on the volunteer program. That is invaluable because these volunteers come in and make it possible for us to have meetings in there. If there's no volunteer coming in, there's no meeting. Those inmates, offenders, whatever, they're not permitted to have a meeting. So when y'all came in, I was able to continue my recovery until 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago, they finally decided, okay, we're going to let you out of prison now. And it wasn't easy. When I first got out, when I first went in, you know, that had these dial phones. I come out and y'all got Star Trek communicators here, you know. It wasn't always easy, but let me tell you, I had solid foundations that you'd given me long before I'd gotten out. The time to start recovery is not after you get out. Recovery is not a checkbook. It's not how much stuff you own. Those are results of recovery. Recovery is an inside job. And it had to start for me long before I got out because they sent me through some hoops. Just being locked up for 30 flat years and then getting out into a totally foreign world was enough of a hoop to jump through. Without parole sending me through hoops, go here, go there, do this, show up on time. The halfway house I went to, I walked out of that prison. I had half a little red sack full of prison trash, and that was the sum of my wealth at that time, after so long in prison. That was it. That trash didn't last a month. It was in the trash before that month was up. But now, 2.5 years later, y'all kept telling me when the times got tough, I didn't stop contacting you when I got out. You told me not to, and I didn't. Y'all picked me up at the walls. Y'all stayed in my phone. You got me a phone so that I could continue to call you. You made sure that I was going to stand, even though I was on wobbly legs. You held me up until I could stand on my own. And you didn't do it for me. You wouldn't raise me. You wouldn't pay my way. You said, do this, and it'll be all right. Do that. Keep picking up your foot, putting it in front of the other, and it'll be all right. So I did. I believed you because I'd believed you so many times before, and it was working. I believed you. And now 2.5 years later, after all those hoops, I live in Katy in a 3-bedroom home. I have my own music production studio in my home. I have a lovely fiance. I have 2 cars in the driveway. Of course, she gets the better one. I just get the jalopy. But happy wife, happy life. That's one of the things I'm learning. And I have everything I've ever wanted. On any given day, I'm happy, joyous, free, secure, and loved. I don't think it gets any better than that in life. These are things I never had in there, and I have them now, daily. You showed me how to live. You showed me how to stand on my own 2 feet. So now I go back into the Wallace Pack unit every week. And I tell those guys, this is the way you do it. And it's the same stuff y'all told me. The same stuff. I still tell them, don't take a drink because the drink will take you. Today, I'm standing before you simply because I am the reason we go back into prison. I carry the message. That's what the 12th step tells me to do. And I know, having been at such a low bottom, like all those other guys in there, that there's no one needing the message any more than those guys in there. And what they need is tough love. What they need is example. What they need is someone to show them how to take responsibility for their own lives, not do it for them. So I don't go in there and I don't try to run those meetings. Instead, I insist, I'll show them how a meeting is run. Then I insist that they run it. And I just sit out of the way unless they need some help. And they're in there after 2.5 years gone. They're still in there running that meeting strong. They don't need me except to show up so they can have a meeting. And they're still running that meeting strong. And that's a good feeling. That's a good feeling that I can give back what was given to me. When they get out, they'll be on solid foundation, and they'll have people to call when things happen to show them how to stand on those 2 feet. And they can have a life again. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Now you see why I want him to speak? Yeah. Great example of what AA does for us in there. You know, when me and Robert go, or me or anybody goes, what we do is we facilitate a meeting, and we help that meeting along. You know, after what Donnie has spoke, if it doesn't put it in your heart to do that, then maybe it's not for you. But if it's tugging at your heart, maybe you ought to pray about that. Me and Donnie are just AA cheerleaders, basically. That's what we do. Robert is actually our correctional facilities chairperson for District 33. He's responsible for making sure that there's meetings being brought into the county jails and all the prisons that are in our 7 outlying counties. And with that, I'm going to have him come up here for questions and answers type of deal. Thank you. Come on, Robert.
Well, my name is Robert. I am an alcoholic. And I want to tell you it's an honor to stand before you guys because, you know, each time I come to this AAGGIELAND convention, I get to see people I don't get to see normally at least this one time out of the year. And it's glad to be seen. And to talk about this program is the fact that I myself been incarcerated, not for a period of time like Dan and these other guys. I quit. I had to because the state of Texas had a plan for me that I didn't like. And I'm going to tell you something. It's funny how it comes around Thanksgiving. I see all these pumpkins, and the color is orange. And it reminds me of where I used to have to wear that same suit. Wasn't very good. All that bright orange with one of those spots coming out of the top of it, and that's my head. But anyway, for those of you who never experienced had the experience to go into one of these facilities, believe me, once you go in, you would want to go back because it is exhilarating to see someone that wants this program as much as you trying to give it to them or offer it to them. Because every Wednesday, I go out there to the Hampton unit and I listen. I share with them my experience. Also, we read out of the book. I don't take anything that I have not experienced in there because I'm going to tell you something. Some of those guys know the book better than you. And some of them say, well, you know what, man, I just didn't stick with it. Well, we want to find out why. And that's what it is for me, to go and see how what I can do for them is they give back to me. Because I have seen some of the guys I've talked to on that hill in these meetings out here free and come back and give in the meeting and say, hey, he helped me, he showed me. That's not no ego. That's just gratitude and the service that I get out of doing what I do. Because I've had, like I say, when I was in Brazos County, there was people coming in. But for those of you who have any questions, I will be glad to answer them after the meeting is adjourned and everything. But I'd like to let you know that it is an 18-month sobriety period that you have to have. But I suggest that you put your application in right after the first year because the orientation is spread out through the whole year. Because right now, in the federal women's prison, which I have recruited some ladies to go in, the orientation, even today stands, and won't be happening until October. And they do a thorough FBI background check. And we do need ladies to go into the BRYAN Federal Women's Prison. We just got that started here about a year ago, going on 2. And let me tell you a little experience about that. Two of them I'm gonna tell you stories about. One, when me and Dan was first going in, I had been in a couple of times, and I think it was Dan's second trip. Well, because of my behaviors and my drinking habits, I had gout, still do. And we were standing outside the line to go in. And I said, man, I'm hurting so bad. Let's go. No, Robert, stick with it. That's Dan. Come on, stick with it. His first time. I said, man, we can get back in it. No, come on, stick with it. So we went in. It took us about 45 minutes. And I looked at him. I said, you know what? I said, only an alcoholic try to break into prison. I said, why did you convince me to do these things? You know how you get talking and doing something, you know, probably the wrong thing, but this is for the right thing. And soon after we got in there, my gout, this pain went away. So you see, God works in mysterious ways. Like I say, going through any lengths. So once I go into this federal women's prison, we in there chairing the meeting, and one of the guards come back in and say, well, we on lockdown. I said, wait a minute. I've been going to the the men's prison for the last 4 years, never a lockdown. I said, I go to a women's prison, lockdown. I said, God, why do you punish me like this? If I'd have been sober, it'd have been a different story. But you see, like I said, once again, he works in mysterious ways, because the lady come back and said, y'all can leave, they just came. I said, really? So you see, it has been fun, and it always is fun to wants to know that I'm doing my service work, because as of today's daily reflection, it was about service, and service to me is, in that triangle of alcoholism, is one of the legacies. And like I shared this morning, when you do service, you get to unity and you get recovery. So you're completing that triangle just by doing one. So if any of you have any thoughts about going in, believe me, it's one place you can go in and you should be able to come out. My wife always asks me, mean they let you out? I said, yeah, because you ain't make no calls. But you see, like I said, you know, this program has been a lot of fun to me. And when I look out over the crowd and I see all these young ladies and smiling faces, I'm saying, now how come I didn't meet y'all when I was drinking? I'm saying, you know what, fool? They were running away from you. But in here, y'all give me hugs. So this is a better jail. But, you know, AA has been a blessing to me and to the people who surround me. Because like I told Robert when he was talking with his wife, I said, man, look here. I said, we don't show up, we talk about you. He said, yeah, I know. But see, that's the thing about AA. When you don't show up, you are missed, and we do talk about you in good ways. Because, see, that's what we do. Because we care, and we love each and every one of y'all. And whether y'all love me, that's a different story. Probably because of the way I act. Because, you know what, I always like to see somebody smile when I walk away from it. Because they say, there you go, I ain't got to worry about messing with me. But, you know, that's all about AA. And, but like I say, if anybody have any questions, just see me after the meeting. I got an application especially for you women, because we need some women. And the only drawback about the women's federal penalty is that you have to be able to be going in there at 7:30 on a Friday morning. So if you don't have anything to do Friday morning, see me. I got a job for you. And they sure need y'all. Because, boy, there's some women in there that are sick. Y'all think the men are sick. Ooh, boy, you got a surprise on your hands. That's why I go in there and say, my wife said, don't you go in there and get no girlfriend. I said, lady, look here. I said, they got problems. I said, if any way I could trade places with you and them, I said, I'll take you. Because they got problems. But anyway, well, I have nothing else to share, and thank y'all for being here for my sobriety.
We're going to have the applications back there where the archives are, and I just want everybody to challenge yourself. Think about it. You know, if God's tugging at your heart, it might be something you might want to try. They need people in there. And, you know, I have been accused of being obsessive compulsive about CFC. I believe it's just being passionate. And I'm going to state it one more time that, I'm pretty sure people weren't betting that I was going to make it when I got here. And that just goes to show that we don't get to pick and choose who makes it. That's God's deal. But we sure got to show up and do the work. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Thank Dan, Donnie, and Robert again. Thank y'all for coming out and bringing that message to us. Real important stuff there. I remember my sponsor had me go through the course to go into the prison system, and it took a long time. And I think one of the classes, I forget where it was, I had to go to it wasn't nowhere near my hometown. It took me a while to get there, Houston, other side of Houston or something. But anyhow, I got it, and a few days later, a week or so later, I got a thing in the mail, said, you're good to go, we've checked you out, and congratulations, and make sure you don't bring any guns or anything, and all this kind of stuff. So I called my sponsor up, said, hey, man, I'm good to go, I got the bell. He said, oh, well, I just got kicked out of it, so. But that's a good deal. Donnie, on behalf of the AAGGIELAND Convention and all the members here today, Dan has requested that we give this to you in appreciation for coming and sharing your story.
Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.